Location, location, location. We've been repeating that phrase for over a century, and in fairness, it works if you're selling to the retail public. But at the institutional level, that idea is a fairy tale. Real estate is not about location, it's about structure. Most deals don't fail because the math was wrong, they fail because the incentives were misaligned. And more often than we like to admit, that misalignment wasn't accidental, it was engineered. Real estate lives at the intersection of three forces: massive capital, rigid regulation, and very human behavior. Wherever those collide, gray zones emerge. Not outright illegal behavior, but areas where outcomes are distorted, risks are shifted, and accountability becomes blurred. This matters because if you treat real estate as a physical asset, you're playing checkers. If you treat it as a sequence of legal, financial, and behavioral maneuvers, you're playing the game that actually generates returns. The danger is this: in gray zones, the people carrying the most downside, limited partners, pension funds, and end buyers, are often the only ones who don't realize they're standing in a minefield. Every deal begins with a valuation. On paper, it's an objective third-party assessment. In reality, it's a negotiation with plausible deniability. No one asks the valuer to lie. Instead, they're given a narrative, a pro forma, a reasonable target, and then they're asked to find the most aggressive set of assumptions and comparables that can justify it. This practice has a name: appraisal smoothing. Research has shown that valuations often lag real market corrections by 6 to 9 months, not because professionals are incompetent, but because volatility is bad for business. A conservative appraiser doesn't get repeat work, an optimistic one does. The incentive structure is simple. Developers want the deal to close. Lenders want volume. Valuers want relationships. Everyone benefits from optimism, at least in the short term. We tend to assume that the bank's internal credit committee will catch inflated valuations. In practice, banks are incentivized by compliance thresholds, not long-term performance. If the loan meets the loan-to-value ratio on paper, the box is checked and the deal moves forward. A real stress test isn't today's valuation, it's a liquidation scenario. What happens if this asset has to be sold within 90 days in a rising rate environment with constrained liquidity? That number is rarely calculated and almost never shared. Debt is the engine of real estate. It's also the most effective tool for moving risk without appearing to. In recent years, we've seen a shift away from simple senior debt toward layered capital stacks, preferred equity, mezzanine tranches, hybrid instruments that look like equity to senior lenders but behave like debt to the borrower. These structures are often sold as sophisticated. In reality, they're about priority and insulation. Who gets paid first, who absorbs losses, and who remains invisible when things go wrong. The most advanced players exploit what can be called information asymmetry arbitrage. They understand regulatory lag, the delay between market reality and institutional recognition. Municipal zoning updates take time. Bank risk models update slowly. Accounting standards trail market behavior. That delay is a window, and within that window, deals are structured, refinanced, and exited before the system fully adjusts. Non-bank lenders thrive here. With fewer disclosure requirements and higher tolerance for complexity, they now facilitate a significant portion of commercial real estate transactions. Transparency decreases, flexibility increases, so does systemic risk. At the end of every deal, someone carries the downside. In gray zones, the professional class, brokers, attorneys, arrangers, lenders, is paid on the transaction, not the outcome. Their risk ends at closing. Everyone else's begins there. So the only question that matters is not whether a deal is legal. It's this: if the market moves 5% against you, who absorbs the loss? If the answer is you, then you're not an investor. You're the liquidity source for the people who structured the deal. To be fair, there is a steelman argument here. Gray zones do provide friction reduction. Without optimistic assumptions and creative structuring, many large-scale projects would never happen. Capital would freeze, development would stall. But we need to be honest about the trade-off. That grease keeps the system moving, but it's highly flammable. The difference between strategic optimization and systemic deception isn't legality, it's who understands the risk and who is unknowingly carrying it. If you don't understand the structure, you are the structure.